Hello everyone, my name is Crystal Pfizer and I'm here to talk to you about infant mortality in the United States. This presentation is for the final project for Library 246, Information Visualization at San Jose State University. Before I get into the presentation, I'd like to discuss how I got the data. Most of the data came from Health Data Interactive, which is an application from the CDC which allows lay users to analyze data from the National Center for Health Statistics. However, the data is presented in 3-year groups, so instead of getting an infant mortality rate for 2010, 2011, and 2012, I just get one number for the time period 2010 to 2012. This makes it very difficult to compare data with other sources. Consequently, all of the visualizations concerning race disparities with infant mortality are derived from data from the Health Data Interactive application. The data comparing the infant mortality rate between states and other countries are taken from Kids Count and World Bank respectively. Now, on to the presentation. What is infant mortality? Infant mortality refers to the death of a baby before his or her first birthday. The infant mortality rate is usually depicted as an estimate of the number of infant deaths for every 1,000 live births. For some of the visualizations used in this presentation, the numbers are too small to retain any meaning when converted to every 1,000 live births. So for those instances, I kept the original measurement of deaths per 100,000 live births. The infant mortality rate is used as an indicator of a nation's health and well-being because the factors that affect the rate include things like maternal health, quality and access to medical care, socioeconomic conditions, and public health practices, among others. The main causes of infant death are birth defects. These defects can include heart defects, respiratory defects, musculoskeletal system defects, and trisomy 18 and 13. Prematurity and low birth weight. This refers to babies that are born too small and too early, that is before 37 weeks gestation. Sudden infant death syndrome. This refers to the sudden death of an infant less than 1 year old that cannot be explained after a thorough investigation is conducted. This investigation has to include a complete autopsy, a death scene examination, and a review of the clinical history. The fourth cause is maternal complications of pregnancy. These can include an incompetent cervix, premature rupture of membranes, and multiple pregnancies. And the last one is unintentional injuries, and these include sleep-related deaths like suffocation and others. These factors account for the majority of all infant deaths in the United States. This tree map illustrates the number of deaths per 100,000 live births from 2010 to 2012. As you can see, the number that died from birth defects was 127 per 100,000 live births. Prematurity was 105. SIDS was around 48. The greatest disparity among infant mortality within the United States is race. As you can see from this graph, non-Hispanic blacks have more than twice the infant mortality rate of non-Hispanic whites, as well as Asian Pacific Islanders and Hispanics. An analysis of the age of the infant at the time of birth reveals that black children are more than twice as likely to die during the neonatal period than non-Hispanic whites. While American Indian Alaskan Natives have comparable post-neonatal rates with that of blacks, their neonatal death rates more closely resemble Asian Pacific Islanders, Hispanics, and non-Hispanic whites. This line graph shows the trends of infant mortality by race over the course of the years through 2001 to 2012. As you can see, all of the races decreased their overall rate throughout the years. An analysis of those years shows that non-Hispanic blacks improved their infant mortality rate more than any other race. Even so, most experts agree that race disparity will only grow with time. There's just too many socioeconomic inequalities of the races, and they don't appear to be declining at a significant enough rate to make a difference. These pie graphs show the top 3 causes of death by race for the years 2010 to 2012. As you can see, there's a great amount of disparity between what black children are dying from and what all of the other children are dying from. Black children are more likely to die from prematurity and low birth weight than any other thing, while all of the other races are more likely to die from birth defects. And there are many emerging theories about why it is that blacks are more likely to die for prematurity. There are some that say that it is genetic. There are some that say that there are inherent stresses that have to do with being black, regardless of your place on the socioeconomic ladder. At this time, there is no conclusive evidence for why blacks at all economic levels are more likely to die in a neonatal period due to prematurity and low birth weight. Sudden unexpected infant death refers to infants that die suddenly and unexpectedly for no known medical reason. There are 3 different types. The first one is SIDS. As I said earlier, SIDS is the sudden infant death syndrome, where a thorough investigation was completed and it cannot be determined what the cause of death was. Unknown cause is a sudden death, but a thorough investigation was not conducted, and so a cause of death could not be determined. And then accidental suffocation and strangulation in bed has to do with placing the baby in an unsafe sleep environment. There is great disparity among the races for instances of SUIDs, more specifically SIDS. As you can see from this graph, American Indian Alaskan Natives are the most likely race to die from SIDS in 2010 to 2012. Next were blacks, and then whites, Hispanics, and Asian Pacific Islanders were the least likely to die from SIDS. When comparing SIDS rates between 2001 and 2012, American Indian, Alaskan Natives, and non-Hispanic blacks actually had the best trends. American Indian and Alaskan Natives showed a decrease of 27% over the 11-year period, and blacks showed a decrease of 22%. While blacks still had a relatively high SIDS rates, they showed a dramatic decrease, and there's no research suggesting that these numbers might plateau at any time soon. However, Hispanics actually increased the number of SIDS deaths. There was a decrease from 2007 to 2009 to 2010 to 2012. However, the 2012 numbers were still larger than the 2001 numbers. When looking at infant mortality rates by state, it's evident that the disparity doesn't just begin and end with race. There are considerable differences between the states, not only among the rates themselves, but how the rates changed over the years. For example, this is a map of the United States in 1990, and it's showing the infant mortality rate per 1,000 live births. If we look at Washington, D.C., we see that they have a rate of 20.7, which is extremely large, and Mississippi has a rate of 12.10. If we skip ahead to 2011, we see that Washington, D.C. has decreased all the way down to 7.5, a decrease of 64%, whereas Mississippi has only decreased to 9.4, which is 22%. Birth outcomes recently made headline news when the CDC published a report comparing the birth outcomes of the United States with other wealthy countries. Although America's infant mortality rate has dropped significantly over the years, it still remains one of the highest rates among economically developed countries. Using data I obtained from the World Bank for 2012, this bar graph shows the infant mortality rates for 30 of the 34 countries in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or the OECD. As you can see, the United States is in last place with 6.1, and countries like Israel, Korea, Switzerland, Greece, all of these countries are doing much better than us with regards to infant mortality. However, we'll go back to the earlier years we can see that United States was near the top of the pack at one point. It's just that all the other countries decreased their infant mortality rate at a faster rate than the United States did. And so we are getting healthier slower. In conclusion, infant mortality in America is much more than just a health issue. It's a social issue. The disparities between people of color and whites are evident no matter what aspect of birth outcomes are examined. It suggests a pervasive problem that will not easily be remedied. And while the data shows improvement in almost all aspects of infant mortality, America continues to lag embarrassingly far behind other developed countries. This concludes my presentation, and I thank you for your time.